Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey. And a quick question, Eric: have we already filled out our movie calendar for the fall? Do we have an open spot or two?
I think so, Jim. I truthfully don't remember what's coming out right now. What's coming out in the fall?
Well, the interesting thing is Universal has decided that this fall it's going to celebrate some anniversaries. So, for example, on September 7th through the 10th, it was actually the 40th anniversary of John Hughes' The Breakfast Club in February of this year, but they're sending the 40th anniversary edition Breakfast Club out into theaters the 7th through the 10th, which I thought that was kind of interesting to press a whole bunch of college and high school students just as the school year is beginning. And then starting on October 3rd, they're sending Casper back into theaters. And what's interesting is Casper, it's not a 3-day long thing. Casper is supposed to run in theaters from October 3rd through Halloween, October 31st. And this is the Brad Sieberling movie from 1995. So that one's celebrating its 30th. Did you ever get to see that?
I know. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And what was it? It was Devin Sawa was the young boy, I think, in it. He was on all the Teen Beat magazines that my sister had and so forth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. I remember Casper pretty well.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing is I remember there was a number that Casper had to hit at the box office, which sadly it didn't. But the Universal was determined to make their Haunted Mansion on the back of Casper. And they had this amazing ride system. Have we ever talked about this before?
No, but I looked up before. There was like a walkthrough or something at Casper related before, right?
Well, yeah, but this was going to be a ride. And the interesting thing about the ride was when you got to the dispatch and you were, the idea was you were going to be touring Wagstaff Manor. Is that, where the ghosts hung out, I think. Anyway, in the ride vehicle was a bed. So, you all 4 people at a time got on the bed. Each of them were strapped into a corner of the bed, and each of them had a bedpost in front of them. And where this got interesting in kind of a Horizon-y kind of way was you would arrive at a room, and then suddenly in front of you would be at least 2 different options about where you could go next. And depending on where the majority of folks did, push their bedpost, push the bed knob, is where you went. So, and this was 95, 96, they were looking to do this. So, a full-blown interactive version of the Haunted Mansion.
That sounds pretty intense and would have been fun to happen. I mean, it seems like, I guess that's a little bit wild, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, where there's 2 different courses, but also,
there we go.
Kind of picking your own. I think they pitched that for a Star Wars ride at one point in time, Dark Side and Light Side.
They did.
Smart guy told me that at a Dayton Disney on a convention one time.
Don't believe that. That man lies. All right. Anyway, so we have some news to cover this week. So let's get to that. And then on the other side of that, we're going to wrap up our series about the Jaws movie. And I'm just warning you in advance, folks, we're going to be talking about Jaws the Revenge, which, what is the old Statler-Waldorf joke? I've seen better film on teeth,
yeah.
So, but anyway, before we do that, we have to acknowledge our sponsors, and they are, of course, unlockedmagic.com. And if you're planning a trip to Universal Orlando or Walt Disney World, check out Unlock Magic. They offer real discounts, up to 12% off of theme park tickets. And with the holiday season just around the corner, Unlock Magic is also offering discounts on Mickey's Not So Scary, Very Merry, and Jollywood Nights tickets. And by the way, Len, I want to say when we spoke last on this, 6 dates already are sold out for Not So Scary. So, all right. Anyway, visit unlockmagic.com and save today. And speaking, well, this is not so scary. This is like really for real Peter Pan scary. Universal Horror Unleashed is officially open in Vegas, right?
Right. So we've been talking about this probably for the last year or so, and we've kind of dabbled a little bit. So we'll give you a whole, if you haven't heard or you weren't paying attention because it wasn't out yet, we'll give you a little rundown of what's going on here. But this is the Universal's first year-round horror attraction, and that is open in the Area 15 area of Las Vegas. So we got earlier this year, we got to kind of stomp around that area. So that was pretty cool. But they have 4 haunted houses. In which Scarecrow the Reaping, which is a 1930s Dust Bowl farmland taken over by vengeful scarecrows. Then we have the classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's the 1974 horror classic with Leatherface and his family. And then we have a Universal Monsters. So we have Dracula, the Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, the Bride, and essentially they just kind of stalk you through a house. And then we have the Exorcist Believer, which is based on the Blumhouse film. And it's the possession of 2 girls through hospitals, homes, and a wonderful exorcism. So those houses, so those houses are available there, but then they also have themed zones. So this would be the equivalent of what a scare zone here if you were in a park, but it is the Kill Vault. So that's blades, blood, and slashers interact with guests in a menacing warehouse. We have a good old prop graveyard. So that's haunted props, dolls, mannequins, which that seems scary to me. But you can't tell if they're dead or alive. And of course, then we have dead storage, which is set pieces overtaken by creatures like vampires and werewolves. And then we have a popular Jack's Alley, which is the twisted carnival chaos starring Jack the Clown and Chance, featuring the Stay or Slay stage show. So far, we have some houses, we have some theme zones, and of course, this is an establishment where you might want to get some drinks or dine. So we have Rough Cuts, which is small plates and story-driven character interactions. And of course, some of the menu highlights are ears and shoulder torta.
I don't want my food coming from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family. No. Okay. All right.
We also have the Premier House. So that's a Blumhouse themed, what is that? A tapas bar? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Props, cocktails, and dishes like the Texas Chainsaw, flatbread, and Crow's Nest. We have a broiler bar, which is just basically a setting in a fiery centerpiece and has craft cocktails. And then it has Jack's Alley Bar, circus-style mayhem with drinks and aerial performances. So that is essentially a rundown of what you get. Of course, there's merchandise and everything else. So that's your real quick version of what's there. So this opened on the 14th? Does that sound right? Last Thursday. So just kind of opened and I think we're all excited. We're really in Halloween Horror Nights frenzy right now. If you're on X or any of the socials, that's anything and everything right now is about Halloween Horror Nights. So this is a nice little addition to it. So Jim, what have you heard or seen online in terms of reaction to this new year-round horror attraction?
Well, the weird part of it is, I want to qualify this because I've read a lot of positive stuff about it. But at the same time, I have read about, confusion by folks who were there that, they got through experiences faster than expected, or they're dealing with mazes that close without notice. And a lot of this stuff just in the way people are describing it. It's like, it's the first week, and it's just sort of like, that you have to sort of, that's the sad part of themed entertainment is sometimes you have to open it and then find out how it works. And that seems to be what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was seeing too, Jim. So I was on. So here's my little caveat: is that I have yet to walk through, a Halloween Horror Nights house or been part of a scare zone. So I did watch the walkthroughs online. So I did get to experience kind of what they have from a point of view, and I thought they were nicely done, very detailed. But I don't have a comparison. So a lot of people were, is it better than the temporary exhibits that they have in Hollywood or Florida? And then you'll see some say yes, some say no. It seems like the consensus it's on par, so it wouldn't be better or worse. And I think some people are expecting it to be far better since it's like permanent. I don't necessarily trust the reviews of people out there that are kind of being sponsored or paid to go to these places, because necessarily we know how that works. If you say something nice, that's great. You say something wrong, you don't get invited again. So you kind of have to read between the lines. So I just went over to Yelp where people are not incentivized. So right now on Yelp, it only has 17 reviews, but it is a 3.5 out of 5. And I did go through and kind of look at to see what's the consensus out of those 17 reviews. So it's not tons of numbers, but no one is being promoted here on Yelp. It's not their personal blog where they're trying to be overly reactive and get a whole bunch of clicks by being rageful and negative, or being super positive to get the invite again. So I would say the majority were giving 4 to 5 stars, and they were praising the theming and the scare actors and the immersion, and just like you would hear from anything else. And they are saying it's on par with that. But a lot of them all had a but. They said, oh, it's great, but in truth be told, it looks like most of the negative aspects are all things linked to first week, first month, first time, right? So they said that maze closures happened with little to no communication. So guests were kind of like only getting half of what's advertised. They were understaffed for food and drink. There were some long waits, even if the crowd wasn't excessive. There was conflicting information between the staff, which happens, and there was some high food and price relative to the quality that they thought. But overall, it was about 70% gave a positive or mostly positive review. About 15 was mixed, and only about 15 were negative. So I would say it's probably a little too early to really tell, and you're going to get the reactions on social that are very pro, because we love everything Halloween Horror Nights, and I have plenty of people that I follow online like that. And then I think the other ones are also kind of engagement farming. So it's really tough to say. I'd say check back on Yelp here in a couple weeks, and let's see if the rankings went back up a little bit.
Okay, no, that seems like solid advice. And more to the point, again, after the first week and figuring out how to properly staff food and bev, and that's the other aspect. I mean, the notion of, oh, the maze is closed. It's like, well, yes, we served food and beverage to somebody, and then they got sick. And we need to close it to clean it. So welcome to our world. If you've talked with anybody who works at Knott's or Universal, they will tell you these stories. People come, consume adult beverages, and get frightened, and 2 exits, no waiting. Just sort of, and we'll just leave it there, folks. Right. Okay, moving on. Right. Okay,
well, moving on.
Okay,
Jim, I don't know if it wasn't Horror Unleashed on my feed. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit was all over. If you were on Twitter or Instagram or really anything on August 17th, that's all that was talking. Did you catch any of the closing, I would say it's ceremony, because they did an actually really, really good job like paying tribute to this attraction on all the platforms. And it seemed like everybody was kind of love-hate. We all appreciated it being there, but then there were some people that always like, good riddance, get rid of this ride, which truth be told, I don't get the controversy. Jim, can you lay a little bit of light on why was this such a controversial ride?
Well, I mean, some of it has to do with placement. I mean, think about it. Back in the day, this was designed to be the ride where even after the park closed, if you were out at City Walk having an adult beverage and a nosh, and it's like, oh, you're willing to pay $10? Sure, come in this side door and you could ride Rip Ride Rockit through the park. So it was kind of built toward the front. And when Universal opted never to really make that an option, it started kind of on a bad foot and then just continued on. I mean, I think for a number of folks, I mean, there were people who will complain if they're hung with a new rope. And, and the whole notion of, what do you mean there's a secret song menu? I want to know what all the songs are. And it's like, well, if we tell you what all the songs are, then the artist will sue us. And so this is why it's a secret.
There you go.
And it's just that's the thing. I think it was, it's a great physical plant, which is why a lot of it is staying in place. But we're seeing more and more signs of a Ghostbusters thing, aren't we?
I thought, it's been creeping up, and I don't know if that's just people wanting it to be a Ghostbusters thing. I've heard that. I've heard there might be a Ghostbusters meet and greet, and somebody, I think, even mentioned that if it becomes it becomes Fast and Furious, that the Fast and Furious ride might turn into a Back to the Future. So I'm hearing all types of fantasy booking, so to speak, and creating all types of stuff. But we'll go to the real, and I'll tell you what actually happened. The last day of Rip Ride Rockit, they gave out commemorative. They gave out guitar picks to everybody, right?
And that's a great touch.
Right. And did you see that they brought out the DJs? So the people, they actually brought out character actors, which I thought this was just great. One day, there's no, they brought out the people that are kind of on the, the graphics and talking to you in the queue and everything. So they had all the video DJs out there in real life. So that was kind of nice. And everybody was, but the problem was the last day there was a lot of lightning and storms. And Jim, I know you're going to get a kick out of this. So on the official Universal Orlando Twitter, which I think does a great job for someone who handles social media for lots of accounts, they do a really good job promoting, but also being, creative and good. They placed this, Jim. It says, Rockit, it's a glorious 12-hour finale. Florida weather. You've got a minute and a half. So come on.
I love that. A Muppet Vision 3D callback.
Right
now.
That is
right.
That isn't that so. So goodbye, Rip Ride Rockit. Rainbow Connection on the way out. So we'll see. We'll be paying attention to what's going on. And luckily, Alicia Stella has been grabbing permits, and the Eye in the Sky Bioreconstruct has been getting photos. So we'll be covering that, as time goes on.
Speaking of which, Bioreconstruct shared a photo this past weekend where he said, "Do you see him?" And it's like,
yeah.
Okay. And you got to understand, I'm old. All right. It's one of these things where it's like, suddenly it's like, oh no, it's where Waldo, and it's like, so I'm looking at this image. He says, it's left center. Look there to the left, to the center. And I still can't see it. But did you see them? The flying dragons?
Well, listen. I won't lie. I was hoping he'd have a little yellow arrow to where it was, because I'm looking around. I'm like, But I think we followed up quickly with the tweet basically saying flying dragon. It's like the weather was nice. Now, I don't think they actually came out that day. I think they were in the back lot. So he did a flyover and got a picture of them possibly being there. But if that happened, Twitter would have blown up. We would have saw them. Everybody would have talked. So for whatever reason, it wasn't the day. Universal did not seem to fly them, but maybe the day's coming soon.
Okay. Well, again, always grateful for what Bioreconstruct shares. But again, that was one of those things where teeny tiny, if you look at a picture on my phone, and I suddenly became the stereotypical old man. But fair, I can't see.
Right. Well, you weren't alone in that one. But speaking of Epic, we got one more news item here that for those that are team members, team members can now use their comp tickets to Epic. So as of the 16th, so the team members have 2 complimentary tickets, and they can use those per month for admission, where before, obviously, they had to pay to get in, but now it looks like that they can actually get in. So not sure what signs that means. That just means that they're opening up capacity, I'm guessing. I haven't paid too much. I haven't gone down to Epic or planned on going, so I haven't looked at wait times and so forth. But we did have one listener was down there and shared some information. It was a sold out day, and it was busy as you would expect in summer. But letting the team members in means that they're probably getting their stuff together, or they're just saying, hey, come in and enjoy the park. There's going to be lines. But the question what I have here as an annual pass holder myself, they're not included. The annual passes are not included, but the annual pass perks on the internet still says it currently ends on December 31st, 2025, suggesting that maybe Epic Universe will become available as an upgrade option, maybe at the beginning of the year. Have you heard anything, or do you have any precedent to say that that sounds like it's reasonable?
I have heard something to this effect. I mean, basically what the Universal Orlando Resort wanted was, an 8 or 9 month long period where, effectively it's like, okay, how does this actually work? How, when we get people inside of this park? And then it's like, okay, because face it, your most loyal and dedicated customers, your annual pass holders, want to support this park. And so it's like, all right, so, have we figured out how to make the day guests happy? And all right, cool. All right, so how many passes can we make available to annual pass holders realistically? And that's the other thing I've been hearing is there may be a ceiling on the number of annual pass holders they will allow, at least initially, to upgrade so they have access, on a regular basis to Epic Universe.
So you're telling me just to get in the queue on the website now and just keep hitting refresh. We'll just start now.
I just saying, to be honest, me personally, finally have actually made plans to head down to Orlando. In fact, Nancy set up my tickets for mid-November, flying in to do IAPA, the Attractions Expo at Orange County, and I think Len and Shula and I will be walking around the parks recording some stuff. But someday in there, I really I want to get into Epic, and I apologize in advance, folks. I'm going to be picking your brains out ahead of this trip about how many days do I need, what order do I need to go into, how is Experiences Park in the fall different than Experiences Park during the summer. I'm going to get real annoying, or more annoying.
Well, we got your back, Jim. We'll help you out there. So we'll make sure you have the most epic trip ever.
Oh, that's cool. And so how do I reward people for doing this? Telling about the worst film that was ever made. And in a moment, we will get to discussing Jaws, The Revenge. But first, this.
Talk about stepping up. Bang! It's time to level up your game. Introducing the all-new ESPN app. All of ESPN, all in one place. Your home for the most live sports and the best championship moments.
The electricity is palpable.
Step up your game with no annual contract required. It's the ultimate fan experience. Level up for more on the ESPN app or at stream.espn.com. Sign up now.
Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
Did my card go through?
Oh no.
Your small business depends on its internet. So switch to Verizon Business. And you could get LTE business internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data for unlimited business.
There we go.
Get the internet you need at the price you want. Verizon Business. Starting price for LTE business internet, 25 megabits per second, unlimited data plan with select Verizon Business smartphone plan savings. Terms apply.
And we're back. Okay. Picking up where we left off on last week's show. Jaws 3D came out July 22nd, 1983. Cost $18 million to make it and did okay at the box office. 45 million domestic, an additional 43 overseas. Total worldwide gross of $88 million. And to put that in perspective, Eric, the original Jaws came out in 75, cost just $9 million to make, but it made $260 million worldwide. Adjusted for inflation, that's $1.5 billion in 2025.
Wow. That is like that is like Avengers money, right?
It is.
Okay.
So
I did not realize that. That whole inflation thing throws me off, but wow,
okay.
1.5.
Okay, now Jaws 2, released summer of 78, cost $30 million to make, but goes on to make $208 million worldwide. And again, adjusted for inflation, that's just over $1 billion in 2025 dollars. So, and if we continue the whole adjusted for inflation thing, that $88 million that Jaws 3D made back in 83, that translates to $285 million in 2025 dollars. But if you look at the steady fall off in box office numbers here, 260 million to 208 million to 88 million. It's clear that moviegoers around the globe are losing their enthusiasm for Jaws movies.
What are you talking about, Jim? Jaws is eating them all. That's the problem. He's taking them all out where it's a smaller audience, obviously.
Okay, I love this theory, but if we go with the actual box office totals, Jaws did okay in 83. It was the 15th highest grossing film overall domestically for that year, and it was Universal's top earner for all of 83. Which is why the takeaway from this situation, at least as far as executives in the Black Tower were concerned, is like, okay, Jaws is still a viable film franchise. And if we ever wanted to make another one of these, I bet there's still some gas left in the box office tank. Now, mind you, there were folks at Universal who interpreted this data very, very differently. And these guys are the true bean counters at the company. They're the ones who, after the fact, once Jaws 3D had completed its worldwide box office run, they literally drop a report on Lou Wasserman's desk that said, sir, you need to pay attention to the trend lines here. Back in 1975, the studio got back 28 times the amount of what Universal spent to make the original Jaws. All right. Now, 1978, the studio got back, 4 times. They got a fourth of what they previously got. Rather than 28 times, it was 6.9 off of Jaws 2. And then by 83, the financial returns on this film series, the profit that the studio actually made off of this motion picture versus what it cost Universal to make and then promote Jaws, fell off by an additional 30%. And so, this report prepared by Universal's bean counters was really blunt, Eric. I mean, it just basically said, look, Jaws as a film franchise is now tapped out. If the trend lines hold, and the studio follows its previous release pattern and puts a new Jaws movie out in theaters in just 3 to 4 years' time, this film will actually lose money. And it would be much wiser on Universal's part to not pursue this course. Use what you got. Put Jaws, the original Jaws, and Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 out in theaters as a triple bill. 20th Century Fox was doing this with their Planet of the Apes movies. They literally had ape-a-thons where you could go and watch all 5 movies back to back. And it's like, make your library work for you. Don't waste money on a film that's not going to make money.
Right. Repurposing, Jim. We do that all the time. You repurpose, you make a social post and you repurpose it a couple months down the line. That's what we do. But that's smart.
All right. So Wasserman, smart businessmen take this information under advisement. But Lou, as a studio head, knew that sometimes the films you put in production have very little to do with strong financial advice. Case in point, the year after Jaws 3D came out, again, so this is 84. Studio really, they didn't have a single film in the top 10 domestic box office. In fact, the top earner for the studio that year was a wonderful comedy with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin called All of Me. But even so, even with glowing reviews, that thing didn't make enough money it barely cracked the top 20. But on the other hand, none of that matters because in 1985, Universal claims the number 1 spot on the domestic box office chart with Back to the Future. That Robert Zemeckis film sells 212 million worth of tickets in North America alone. An additional 11 million overseas, worldwide gross of 223 million. And there was much rejoicing up in the Black Tower when what happened with Back to the Future happened the way it did in the summer of 85. Because you got to remember, the studio effectively had to throw away the first 6 weeks of footage that were shot on this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael J. Fox wasn't the main guy, right?
Eric
actually
Stoltz.
had
Eric Stoltz.
Yeah, and I've seen there's some fun clips on YouTube that actually show that. But yeah, that was a gamble, but it looks like it paid off for him.
It did. But on the other hand, the film was originally budgeted for $12 million, came in at 19, and a lot of that was because of poor Michael J. Fox was spending his days shooting Family Ties, and then they'd drive him over and he'd shoot at night, and sleep in the car on the way back to Family Ties. But again, all is forgiven at a studio when a problematic project then goes on to become a box office behemoth. On the other hand, when you have a problematic project that then lays an egg at the box office, like Howard the Duck, summer of '86 from Universal. By the way, that's the first feature-length film to ever be released theatrically that was built around a Marvel comic book character. And I actually like this movie, but again, I slow down for car accidents, but it cost Universal $36 million to make it. Only sells $16 million worth of tickets stateside. So, and by the way, you'll love this. That meager box office is gets Howard the Duck. It lands on the 54th spot on the North American box office for all of 1986. But you know what was just ahead of it on the list with a gross of $17 million?
In 1986? That's a tough one. I don't know. What do we got?
Disney's theatrical re-release of Song of the South. And this is that infamous re-release where Michael Eisner is literally, if we actually do this attraction built around Song of the South, are people going to pick it? Are they going to be mad? And so Eisner basically told the Imagineers, it's like, look, let's put the movie back in the theaters for 2 weeks. And if we see a significant amount of negative mail, we're not doing this. So just around Thanksgiving of 1986, Song of the South goes back into theaters for just 2 weeks. And in that time, it grosses $17 million. And Eisner sits there and waits. And it's like, no mail. Okay. Turns to Imagineers and says, go build your flume ride.
That's repurposing once again, Jim. So like that.
There we go.
Worked out well for him.
All right. Well, back to Universal now. 86, kind of a tough year for the studio. Their big prestige film, Out of Africa. It goes on to win 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director. But that Sidney Pollack movie was very expensive to make and was not nearly as profitable as the studio had hoped it would be. And to be honest, the same thing could be said about Universal's other big live action comedies for 86. There was Legal Eagles with Robert Redford, and there was The Money Pit with Tom Hanks. And so this is why in the fall of 86, Universal begins groping for a sure thing. Something that the studio knew that if they put it in theaters in the summer of 87, it would absolutely be guaranteed to make money. And that, at that moment, seemed to be another installment of Universal's Jaws series, which again, the bean counters like, don't do this. And we're going to get to why that decision proved to be very, very wrong in a moment. But first, this.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
It's summer. Time to enjoy long days, lazy nights, and zero cooking. Because Uber Eats has deals all summer long. So when hunger strikes, don't sweat it. Delicious deals are just a tap away on Uber Eats. Enjoy all your favorite food delivered straight to you. Get Burger King, Subway, Popeyes, and hundreds more local favorites and savor every last bite. Now that sounds like a good summer. Order now on Uber Eats. Terms apply. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
And we're back. Okay. So picking up where we left off, folks. Universal decided fall of 86 that it needs to rush a fourth Jaws movie into production. Something that studio execs are certain will make money, well, once it's released in theaters in the summer of 87. And to give you some idea, Eric, how ass backwards this whole process was, Universal settles on a release date for Jaws 4, which, by the way, July 17th, 1987, before they have a screenplay.
It doesn't sound like a bad idea at all, Jim.
No, they don't even have a working outline.
Oh, even better.
Okay, but the thinking is, well, Jaws 4. Look, we need to return this film to its glory days, back when the original Jaws and Jaws 2 made over 200 million worth of sold 200 million worth of movie tickets worldwide. So, how do we do that? We get the surviving stars of this Spielberg film, Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss. We get them to come back, but just for extended cameos. So a script is developed that has Roy Scheider's Martin Brody character killed by a great white in the first 10 minutes of Jaws 4. So it's kind of a psycho situation. You kill off Janet Leigh early. Oh, by the way, I should have said spoiler in front of that. Sorry for those of you who haven't seen the Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
we're pretty beyond that point. I even know that.
Okay. I'm still going to get mail. I know I am. Okay, and then Richard Dreyfuss's Matt Hooper character, he would show up at Sheriff Brody's funeral and offers sincere condolences to Martin's grieving widow Ellen, who's going to be played once again by Lorraine Gray, who, by the way, want to remind you, she's still the spouse of Universal CEO Sidney Sheinberg. So, anyway, this is the plan from the get-go, that Jaws 4 would be built around Martin Brody's widow, Ellen, and again, played by Lorraine Gray, who is trying to protect the remaining members of her family, and now sons Michael and Sean, from that murderous great white who now seems to determined to consume every single member of the Brody clan.
Jim, this movie could have been real short. She could have just been like, hey, we're moving to Ohio.
Like, I love that. I love, there we go.
Oh, there's your summer blockbuster. Sorry, Jim.
There we go. Now, this storyline, this idea, is why Jaws 4 eventually got renamed Jaws: The Revenge. More to the point, why the catchphrase for this Universal's marketing department dreamed up for this film, Eric, I kid you not, it's like, this time it's personal.
Oh.
Okay, only one problem with Universal's plan for Jaws 4.
Only one problem, Jim? Only one?
Okay.
Sure, this is the major problem, right?
Okay, if we're being honest, it's actually two problems, because that's Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss want absolutely nothing to do with this Jaws sequel, which, by the way, somebody pointed out, enjoyed the series, but pointed out that Roy Scheider, when it came to making Jaws 2, he was still under contract to Universal, and he was so, in fact, he had already made Sorcerer with William Friedkin, and he had a 3-picture deal with the studio, so he still owed them 2 films, but he's like, I hate this idea. I don't want to do this. And eventually the deal they made with him was, all right, well, what if you'll agree to come back and play Martin Brody, we'll just lump instead of you owing us 2 films, this will count as 2 films. Just come back and make this sequel. And I'd also, again, they kept piling up money, and this third time it's like, keep piling, because I'm never coming back. I am not going to. There is an amount of money in the world that will get me into Jaws 4. Whereas Richard Dreyfuss, what was kind of interesting, on the heels of the success of Down and Out in Beverly Hills, which arrived in theaters January of 86 and co-starred Bette Midler and Nick Nolte. Richard's in the middle of a career revival, and he's working over at Disney on things like Stakeout and Tin Man. And so, I mean, Dreyfuss is like, geez, I'd love to, but I'm working for the mouse. So sorry about that. All right. So now with this wrinkle, script for Jaws 4 hurriedly gets rewritten. So now Martin Brody has died off screen of a heart attack some 18 months previous before the film starts. And Ellen Brody, still living on Amity Island, she gets some shocking news. Her youngest son, Sean, who just like his dad, has taken a job with the Amity Island Police Department. Down by the water at night, trying to clear a log away from a dock, gets his arm taken off by a great white shark. All right. And then well, you'll love this. It's where he falls in the water,
of course,
and he starts screaming for help. But it's just a few days before Christmas, so there are carolers in the streets of Amity, and somehow the Feliz Navidad is drowning out. That the help, a shark is eating me.
All great movies have this happen, Jim. All great movies.
There we go. The Christmas carols block out the sound of horror. Okay, anyway, Ellen's other son, Michael, he returns to Amity Island for Sean's funeral. By the way, for those of you who actually watched Jaws 3D, you remember that Martin Brody's sons both had prominent roles in that film. I mean, Michael was supposed to be the chief engineer of SeaWorld Orlando, where Sean had come down to that theme park to visit his brother while he's on summer break from college. And anyway, Jaws 4 pretends that Jaws 3D never happened. Sean is no longer a college student, but again, a sheriff's deputy. And Michael's now a marine biologist who lives in the Bahamas with his wife and 5-year-old daughter. But anyway, after Sean's funeral, Michael's like, Ma, let's get a break from Amity Island. Come down to the Bahamas. Come visit me where I'm doing my research, figuring that, his mother spending time with his 5-year-old daughter will shake her out of her funk. More to the point, Mom is, that shark is, that it just determined to kill everyone in this family. That's nice, Mom. Let's get you down to the island and get a couple of Mai Tais into you and maybe some medication. Just saying. So Ellen flies with Michael back to the Bahamas, and just days later, this very same murderous great white turns up there,
right?
And only Michael, because again, marine biologist, and knows that great whites are so rare in the waters of the Bahamas. He decides to this animal rather than kill it, and then if this script could get dumber, it does. All right, so. Michael decides, again, he's studying the great white, so he implants it with a tracking device. So, which later on in the film, in the last half hour or so, they figure out, wait a minute, we can get this thing to short out. We can get it to zap the great white, as it's now attacking them on their research boat. So, and God, if you watch the movie, every time they send an electrical charge to the shark, it then first breaches out of the water like it's Shamu, and then it roars like a lion, like And now, to be fair here, the script for Jaws 4 was being rewritten as this Universal Pictures release went before the cameras. And by the way, didn't go before the cameras till February of 87. Remember, we have a locked-in release date of July 17th of that same year. So do the math, people. They have less than 5 months to shoot the movie, get it edited, and get it out into theaters. And by the way, the first 2 weeks of production, I swear to God, Eric, they're back on Amity Island, but it's February.
Right.
All right. So, they're out in Nantucket where it's covered with snow and ice. And it's like, boy, I bet it was easy to shoot a movie under those conditions. And, and more to the point, the poor actor who was playing Sean, who had to be in the water there. It's like, I am so happy I'm only on this movie for 5 minutes. I can go home and get warm. But anyway, not to belabor the obvious, a lot of dumb ideas that were in the script got cut out as they were making their way through production. And one of the dumbest was that why this great white was targeting the Brody family was because a voodoo priest that Michael is somehow upset during his time on the island had now placed a curse on the Brody family. So,
but that's not in the film, Jim, right? That's not an actual. That's
well, no. What's interesting though is that they rushed a novelization of Jaws: The Revenge out to be in bookstores, and they used the original version of the screenplay. And so this actually talks about the voodoo priesthood. I will get the Brody
it's a separate timeline. It arced.
There we go.
That's beautiful, Jim. Okay. This is just the best.
All right. Anyway, they complete production of Jaws 4 on May 26, 1987. They now have less than 8 weeks before this Jaws sequel is supposed to open in theaters. So to say post-production is rushed is an understatement. In fact, Frank Bauer, who was the associate producer and production manager on Jaws Revenge, said that prior to this motion picture's release, that Jaws 4 was the fastest I have ever seen a major film planned and executed in all of my 35 years in showbiz. Now, please notice that Mr. Bauer said, nowhere does he say that Jaws: The Revenge is a good movie, only that it was produced quickly, perhaps too quickly, so much so that when Jaws: The Revenge opens in North American theaters and performs so poorly at the box office over its opening weekend, the folks up in the Black Tower do something they have never done before. They actually insist that the end of the movie needs to be reshot before Jaws 4 gets re-released overseas. So picture this. It's Tuesday, July 22nd, 1987. This is 5 days after the movie is open, in a theater near you in Southern California. And if you're on the Universal Studios tram tour that day and you roll by Falls Lake, the big outdoor, they're out there shooting a brand new finale for Jaws 4, so that when it goes overseas, it has a different ending. And Eric didn't help. Jaws 4, Jaws: The Revenge, cost Universal $23 million to make. It only sold $20 million worth of tickets in North America, an additional $31 million overseas with the brand new ending. So a worldwide box office of $51 million. And if you know your Hollywood math, you have to make at least 3 times your original production cost before you even begin to eke out a profit on your motion picture. So the bean counters up in the Black Tower were right that returning to the well for a 4th time and making another Jaws movie was a mistake. And what I love about this is the Jaws bad luck continues. Because remember, Jaws the Ride opens at Universal Studios Florida, June of 1990, and malfunctions in a huge way. So much so that the park actually shuts the attraction down in August of that same year, 1990s, and it already cost $30 million to build, Eric.
Wow.
They spent another $20 to overhaul it, and it doesn't reopen to the public till, dear Lord, it's 3 years later, October 1st, 1993. Though you'll love this, for the opening of the version of the ride that actually finally did work, who's there on hand? But it's Steven Spielberg, Lorraine Gray, and Roy Scheider.
Oh, there you go.
He kind of got over, all right, this celebrates my movie. Okay, I'll be here. But Lou Wasserman at this point, again, having spent $20 million to fix his $30 million ride, effectively, supposedly turned to his subordinates and says, look, Universal is out of the great white shark business. Okay. We'll stick with everything we already have. The VHS version of the movies, the DVDs, the merch, the theme park rides. Merchandise that to the hilt, but we have spent our last dollar on new shark stuff. From here on in, I'm not going to throw good money after bad. By the way, we lose Lou at the age of 89 in June of 2002. And what's interesting is with Mr. Wasserman gone, this is why the Universal Park that opened in Japan in January of 2012, that gets a Jaws ride. He wasn't going to do it. Well, as long as Lou was in charge, it wasn't going to have it. But with him gone, But that opens with the rest of that park. I'm sorry. It opens in January of 2001. And what I'm confusing here is, of course, the stateside version of Jaws the Ride. That closes in January of 2012 because that's where we get Diagon Alley. Anyway, if you want to experience Jaws the Ride, I will tell you, the flight time from LA to Osaka is 12 hours and 30 minutes. And Eric, that is just enough time to watch the original Jaws, which is 2 hours and 10 minutes long. Jaws 2, which is an hour and 56 minutes long. Jaws 3D, that's an hour and 39 minutes long. And Jaws the Revenge, which is an hour and 29. It's ironic. It's the shortest of the series. And trust me, when you're watching it, it feels very long. And then you still have enough time to watch 4 of the 6 Sharknado movies that the folks at Universal made to air over on YouTube and are available on Peacock. And by the way, if you're going to watch a Sharknado movie, the one you got to watch, especially on the heels of the closure of Rip Ride Rockit, is Sharknado 3, Oh Hell No. Because this is the one that's actually shot in Universal Studios Florida and actually features an extended action sequence up on the just shuttered Rip Ride Rockit. In fact, you get to watch a shark, do the loop-de-loop.
Beautiful. The treble clef, right? That's the
There we go.
No,
there we go.
That is well, Jim. I don't think that if I was going to Osaka, I don't know if I'd be hitting that up. But they could have just saved all this hassle by just doing that movie-thon, right? They should have just did the Jaws 1 through 3, threw it back out there. But if we did that, then we wouldn't have this wonderful feature today of Jaws 4.
But again, it just, and what's fascinating is that there are people to this day who insist that Disney stole the end for The Little Mermaid, with Ursula getting rammed through by the boat from Jaws the Revenge. That's actually how, well, at least in the American version, that's how they take out the shark. She drives the prow of the boat into the jumping, roaring shark.
Yeah. Well, at least we got something good out of it.
Okay.
Good story there. Well, no, thanks, Jim. Lots of shark talk over the last couple weeks, and I appreciate it. I have all the Jaws to last me for quite some time now.
Well, and so on that note, folks, I think it's time that we close up shop for this week's Epic Universal podcast. That said, though, if you do have suggestions about what you'd like Eric and I to talk about, and particularly in the feature portion of the show, we always love to hear from you folks, and feel free to reach out anytime. Speaking of which, Eric, how can the nice folks get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can reach me at Eric Hersey on Instagram, X, most of the platforms out there. What about you, Jim?
Let's see. You can find me on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And with that, that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. So thanks for listening, and please stick around to find out what's coming up this month on the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. Thanks for listening to today's episode, and if you like what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. This really helps get the word out about our shows. We also have some other shows on the network that you might like. Each week, we drop a brand new Disney dish with Len Testa. For animation and movie news, please listen to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. By the way, you can also check out Drew's other podcasts, like The Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, which he does with Charles Hood. For all things Lucasfilm, why don't you subscribe to Looking at Lucasfilm with Brian Gahn? Likewise, we have I Want That Too with the lovely Lauren Hersey, our weekly podcast that features the latest merch and the stories behind that merch. And our Epic Universal podcast takes a look at the Universal theme park. So please join Eric Hersey and I on that weekly. If you enjoy theme park history, we also host Manufacturing the Magic with Shelley and Noah Valladolid. That podcast tells the story of how we got the modern theme parks that we enjoy today. Join myself, Len Testa, and veteran Imagineer Jim Schul for our latest season of Disney Unpacked, our first ever video series exclusively for Patreon. These get released first Sunday of every month, and each month we release several exclusive podcasts to help support this video series. I want to thank everyone that supports the Jim Hill Media Network. For more information about podcasts and content, head on over to jimhillmedia.com. So that's going to do it for now, folks. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch up on the next show.
Want to live better? We've got a lot of work to do. Join Chris Hemsworth in National Geographic's new Disney Plus original series, Limitless. Live better now.
I'm diving headfirst into cutting-edge science to uncover 3 powerful secrets to living better right now. The growth that occurs through any challenging experience is really what we seek.
Chris Hemsworth stars in Limitless. Live better now. Now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
It's showtime.